Chapter 1. K. The first thing I noticed when I crawled my happy ass out of bed was the dream catcher my mom got me on my 26th birthday. It hung by my bed since the day she died. God only knew if it actually did anything to keep nightmares away, but it sure didn't help me sleep. She always said when things are bad in life, at least your dreams can be pleasant. Whatever the hell that meant, I threw the blanket off me and crawled over my warm, cozy blankets. I hated my job, but it was the only thing keeping me in my apartment, and I was not going to be homeless. Plus, it paid well, and that was a plus. At least that was what I kept telling myself every morning when I wanted to just call my boss and tell him to shove this job up his ass. I sighed and sat at my computer. At least I didn't have to go far to work. I turned on my laptop and signed into my job site. Everything was remote, and for most, that was ideal. I mean, some ways it was, but I still wished money would fall from the sky and let me do what I really wanted in life. I glanced at the half-finished painting and sighed. You can't make money in art, I said to myself. I made a face and answered the first call that rang into my system. At least the day went by fast enough. I finally changed and decided it was time for a pizza and not in the house for once. I changed into my day clothes and headed for the nearest pizza place. There weren't many around my home because I lived in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, but the few that did exist were some of the best you could have in the Midwest. I ordered my favorite mushroom and olive pizza and took a seat in my favorite booth by the window. Kay, are you in here again? Daisy, the owner, popped her head out from behind the counter. She was an older woman with short curly hair and always was here. You know I can't stay away from your pizza, I said with a smile. She shook her head. You should be out there with a man. I laughed nervously. Yeah, I'm good. I shook my head at the idea. There was no man that could deal with all the baggage I had. A dead mom, no dad, and some legend about witches and demons in our family. It was too weird for anyone. You're young and pretty. It's the perfect time. She said again. Beats coming here every week to get a cheap pizza with me. I love your cheap pizza, I teased. So did I, and look what happened, she said, waving at the building and her business around her. I never understood what was so bad about it. She seemed to love her business and the people that came and went, but maybe there was more to her than what I knew. Maybe she had her own set of secrets she didn't share. God knows I had mine. She called for me to get my pizza, and I made my way to the counter to pick it up, but something felt off. Something I'd felt before but ignored, and it stopped me. I glanced behind me at the window, and there was a figure standing on the other side of the street from the little pizza shop. I stared at it, trying to decide what the hell it was, but before I could put anything together, it was gone. Kay, Daisy said, watching me. Are you all right? I turned back to her and forced a smile. Yeah, I'm good. I grabbed my pizza box and headed towards the door. Just think I should head home. Okay, see you later. And remember you only live once. Take the next hot guy on a date or at least have a coffee. I glanced at her and shook my head. Fine, I'll do that. She smiled widely as I pushed the door open and headed home. It was getting dark, and while I wasn't worried about it a lot, I couldn't shake that feeling someone was watching me. Once I got home, I ate a slice and put the rest into the fridge. Everything felt weird and off, and I just couldn't shake it. Maybe I just need to sleep. My cozy bed was looking pretty good right now. I changed and made my way into the warm blankets and closed my eyes. Finally, a dark voice echoed in my ear, and I opened my eyes, but I wasn't in my bed. I was lying on a cold floor in what looked like a basement from one of the many horror movies I'd watched this last week. Then I saw him, leaning on the far wall near the stairs to go into the main part of the house. He was dressed like he was going someplace fancy. Dark dress pants, white button-up shirt, and a gray vest that felt very out of place, and a weird top hat. What the fuck? I said, and he laughed. What, you don't know who I am? He shook his head as he stepped closer. Typical. He cocked his head and watched me for a moment. Didn't anyone tell you? Tell me what? I said without thinking. He looked irritated and rolled his eyes. A bargain was made a long time ago and I'm here to collect. Collect what? He smiled and knelt down so he was at the same height as me. You. Chapter 2. I stared at him. This is a dream, I said, shaking my head. You're not a real person. It's all in my head. He laughed. Oh, it's so much more than that, Caitlin. You know my name because you're not real, I said, leaning in on him. He didn't move. Are you sure? Honestly, I wasn't sure of anything, but I was able to understand when I was dreaming and when I wasn't. This was a dream. You're just some character I created to work something out, I snapped, but something felt wrong. Didn't your mother teach you about the dangers of not sleeping with your dream catcher up? He smirked as he spoke. It is up. I saw it this morning, I said, standing. Are you sure? He crossed his arms and followed me. Go away, I snapped at him. He laughed again. Oh no, sweetheart, that's not happening. He grabbed my arm and I pulled away. Oh, you want to do things the hard way? He shrugged. Fine. The room went black and everything around me shifted into a completely different space. He was still there watching me with that goddamn smirk, and I stepped back, tripping into a chair. The room was nowhere I'd seen before and looked like it had no doors or anything to get out through. There was a bed to the left of where I was sitting in this velvet chair that seemed to materialize out of thin air. On the far wall was a table with a white candle on it, glowing faintly. Everything looked old but new at the same time. What the fuck? I said again, but before I could get out of the chair, was there, towering over me. Like I said, you're mine, Caitlin, he said, leaning down towards me. Penance must be paid. What are you talking about? I almost whispered. There were old stories about witches and demons in my family line making deals with each other, but that was all they were, stories. He sighed. Why does this have to be so difficult? A deal was made for you. I was supposed to have you a long time ago, but your mother made sure to keep that damn dream catcher in the way. It kept you away? I was trying to wrap my head around all this, but it seemed crazy. She knew about it. Your grandmother made the deal so I wouldn't take your mother, he said, still too close. That was all stories. Witches and demons aren't real, I said, more to myself than him. He smiled. Sweetheart, you're looking at a demon. Actually, the demon. Right, I said sarcastically. Whatever this thing was in my dream, it was all me. There was no way this was true, right? Oh, you don't believe it yet. He stepped back. That's okay. We have all night. This is my dream, so I can make it whatever I want and I can make you leave, I said, raising my eyebrows. That's how dreams worked. If I wanted him to go, all I had to do was make it so. I concentrated on where I wanted to go. My favorite pizza place, with Daisy behind the counter. She was a comfort, even if she didn't know it. It was the one place I felt like I could be myself and no one would judge me. The room shifted and melted into that familiar pizza place, complete with the smell of fresh pizza baking in the back. I was sitting in my favorite booth and turned towards the rest of the restaurant. You really thought I'd just vanish, huh? He said from the booth across from me. You're a part of my dream. You shouldn't be here, I said, and got up from the booth. I walked towards the back to get away from him, but when I opened the door to the kitchen, he was standing in front of me. This was getting annoying. I told you, you can't get rid of me. I'm not a part of your dream. He stepped towards me, and I felt myself stepping back again. I ran into the counter, and he raised an eyebrow. Now, do you mind? Said, reaching one hand behind me and snatching a piece of pizza from the counter. He took a bite, and I watched him and shook my head. What are you? He enjoyed that bite a little too much before setting it back with the others and looking at me like I had said the most ridiculous thing ever. I told you, I'm the demon. Yeah, I heard you the first time, I interrupted. Why are you in my dream? He shook his head. Like I said, your family made a deal and I'm collecting. He grabbed my arm and dragged me through the pizza place and out the door. Now let's go. If you're a demon and in my dreams, then I could just wake up and you'd be gone, I said with a tight smile and crossed my arms. Oh, sweetheart, I already have your sleeping body in my bed. He yanked on my arm. I'd love for you to wake up and let me have some fun with my new toy. I yanked my arm away. You're a liar, I spat. Wake up and see, he said with a smirk. Now I was fucked. Chapter 3. I walked away from him and headed down the street, which turned into a forest path within seconds. Where the hell am I? I hurried along and glanced back to see if this demon guy was following me. I didn't see anyone, but that didn't mean much, considering my surroundings kept changing. I had no idea where the hell I was or where this was from. Probably some show I'd watched a few days or weeks before. Dreams are weird. I stopped and shook my head. Why was I just walking through a forest? I could change it at any time and go somewhere more fun, like the carnival I went to when I was 7 with my mom. As soon as I thought about it, everything swirled and changed, so I was standing in the middle of a carnival. This is more like it. I breathed a sigh of relief at the change. Sure, it was dark, but the lights and the music were comforting in a weird way, and the way the rides moved around me gave me a comfort I didn't realize I even needed. Maybe it was because it was one of the places my mom and I went to my whole life, even after she got sick. This stupid carnival was a place where nothing mattered and everything was good. I walked to a nearby booth to play a game. The game master turned around to hand me a ball, but I was staring at that demon's stupid face. "God, do you ever go away?" I said. "No," he said simply. I aimed and threw the ball, hitting the target head-on. "Nice throw." I turned and stalked away. Still, this asshole was following me through my life. Why couldn't I get him out of my dream? "Caitlin," he said from in front of me. Now he was standing by the Ferris wheel, leaning on the gate to get on. "Come on," he pointed towards it, and I sighed. Fine, if going on a ride with him would make him go away, I'd do it. I walked past him and through the gate to board the ride. There wasn't an attendant, but this was a dream, so that probably wasn't needed. I mean, I could blink and the whole thing could change. I sat, and he took a seat beside me and pulled the safety bar down. The ride jolted forward and started going up. I didn't look at him, but at all the people on the ground having fun and playing games. "This is an interesting place for a dream to be," he said. "I like it here," I said. "At the carnival." "I see. Good memory?" I nodded and finally looked at him. He was stupidly handsome, and when he wasn't being an asshole, there was something about the way he looked at the people on the ground that was fascinating. Like he wanted to be one of them in a weird way. So why did my grandma need to make a deal? Might as well find out what this dream demon was all about, even if he was a figment of my imagination. "It's a long story," he said, "but you're the prize." He looked at me and his gaze dropped down my body. I shook my head. "I'm a big fat nobody," I said. "You don't know, do you?" He let his hands dangle over the safety bar. "Know what?" I said, frustrated by him dodging my questions and saying the same things over and over again. "You, Caitlin, are a witch and a powerful one at that," he said. I laughed and shook my head. "Right, and you're a demon." "Yes," his face was serious. "I'm the demon of dreams and destiny," and he snapped his fingers, and we were back in that room with the chair and bed from before. "You're now in my world."
Chapter 4. Serious. The minute we hit my home, she gave me that same look of what the fuck. And it made me smile even more. This girl was feisty and strong. Too much like her grandmother. But she wasn't going to outsmart me again. I had an eternity to play with my new pet. Now that she was in my control. Even her body, safely sleeping, was in my home. It was just on a different plane. As soon as she woke, she'd realize how much of a prisoner she really was, and I'd be there to watch it all. Her blonde hair fell into her face as she shook her head. "This is bullshit," she spat. "This is my dream. I'm the one that decides where we go." As soon as she finished the words, the place shifted and I raised an eyebrow. Interesting. She was more than she appeared, and it made sense why she never used her magic in the waking world. She was a dream weaver. She was someone that could control dreams much like me. The only difference was she was a witch and had limits. I didn't. I stepped back and let myself fall into the shadows. It was more interesting to watch her and see where she would go and with who. There was a part of me that wanted to just chain her to my bed and keep her there. I smiled at the thought. Maybe when she woke up, her body would be. For now, I wanted to see what her fears were. Her desires. The room shifted in shape and size to a living room area with a cluttered couch full of clean laundry and a box television on a small table across from it. The channel was turned into a random cartoon and went in and out on the screen. I watched her as she walked past the couch and towards the kitchen. A woman was standing next to the sink, cleaning dishes. "Kay, can you put these away?" The woman looked her way, her blonde hair falling on her shoulders. I watched and a smiling Kay picked up the dishes and started putting them away. Of course, Mom. She put each one away and the woman took a seat at the little formica table near the fridge. I'm just so tired, she said. I know. You should rest. You're sick, Kay said and closed the cupboard door. I cocked my head at the word sick. Dreams were an insight into people. You could learn anything about them. Their fear, dreams and the problems they thought they had in the waking world. I usually didn't take much interest unless they were witches I planned on using for my own gain or other creatures that could be useful. I didn't know Kay, though, and hadn't had a chance to be in her dreams to learn about her. I stepped out of the shadows and leaned on the wall next to her mother. Your mother was sick, huh? I watched her turn to face me. You're still around, she said bitterly. I smirked. Of course I am. She rolled her eyes. She died when I was almost 18. Cancer, she said. Her eyes drifted to her mother, still sitting at the table and looking at Kay. You miss her, I said, watching the two of them just look at each other. Of course. Don't you miss your parents? I laughed. My parents. We're demons. No one cares about the others. We just exist to gain power. That's gross, she said simply. I shrug. Demons were made originally to cause chaos. It's not a stretch to see us reaching for power however we can. Except you haven't done anything to me, she said. You said I was a witch, but didn't try to come after my power. You don't know that. I stepped towards her. Maybe I'm just waiting for the right moment to snatch it. I whispered that last part in her ear as I moved past her. You said you had my body in the waking world. Is that true? She stood with her arms crossed over her chest and her weight on one leg, trying to look tough, but the fear in her eyes betrayed her. Yes. After I removed the dream catcher, I knew I could hold you here, as long as I wanted to give my guys time to move your body to my home. When you wake, you'll be here and have no way to leave. I pinned her to the counter. Even when you sleep, I'll be there to torture you. Is that what your goal is? To torture me? Her words were quiet and I found myself drawn in by them. Or by her sensual lips as she tried to not let me know how scared she really was. I leaned forward so was inches from those lips. Maybe, I said simply. Maybe not. I let my lips gently touch her neck. Maybe I have something else in mind. Not happening, she said quietly, but she didn't move or fight me. She just stood there, waiting for what I would do next. I stepped back with a smirk on my face and my cock straining against my pants. I'd never been so turned on by a witch in my life. Usually, I didn't give in to these base desires. I had bigger plans for my energy, but this witch, this woman, trying me in ways I didn't think possible. I could feel her gaze burning into my back and it was making me want to turn around and pick her up and put her on that counter, spread her legs and make her mine. Even if it was in the dream world, she'd feel it. That was how it always worked. The dreamer felt everything I did, whether it was to cause pain or pleasure. What now? She said. Since I can't get rid of you. I turned to face her. Are you relenting to your fate? I raised an eyebrow as I spoke. My fate. Like being stuck here. She sighed. I mean, it looked like I could control what was going on around me. What if I just made a cliff and pushed you off it? I smirked at her boldness. You could, but it wouldn't do anything to me. This is my domain. I thought we already established that. I waited for her to smart off. Then why do you even want me? The question was direct, but I'd never give her my honest answer. Power, I said simply. Is that all you care about? She stepped towards me and I stared right into her dark eyes. Mostly, yeah, I said. You have it. I want it and it's owed to me. Is that all? What is she playing at? Just power and what's owed. She took another step towards me. Wake up and find out, I said before snapping my fingers and she disappeared.
Chapter 5. K. My eyes shot open and I breathed heavily. The room was dark and no light was even coming through my window. That was when I realized there was no window. I wasn't at my apartment. I sat up and tried to will my eyes to focus. Then in the distance, glowing eyes peered at me and I fucking panicked. I got out of the bed and was slammed back into it by something attached to my arm. I snapped my gaze to my arm to see the chain running from my wrist to the headboard of the bed. What the fuck? I yelled and snapped my eyes back to the man walking towards me. I told you I had your body now. He walked to the edge of the bed, us out of reach. There is no escape. Where the hell am I? I pulled at the chain. You, Caitlin, are in my world now, he said with a smirk. I stood again and was pulled back by the chain to a sitting position on the bed. He took the opportunity to stand over me and cocked his head to the side. "You can't get away, so it's better for you to just get used to your new home," he said, letting that smirk fall just a little. He was enjoying this more than he wanted to let on. He liked having me stuck here under his control. It seemed more than when he stalked me in the dreaming world. "What are you after?" "So what? I'm just supposed to surrender and let you do whatever you want." I watched him as I spoke, and he leaned in closer. "You didn't push me back in the dream," he said, getting a little too close to me. It was true. I didn't push him back when he made that move on me before, but that was in the dream. This was real life. At least I thought it was. This whole thing was super weird, and the only context I had was what this demon was saying. Maybe it was all just a big, complicated dream so I could work out my issues. Maybe I'd wake up in my bed in my apartment, and none of this would be real. "That was different," I managed. "Was it?" he said, letting his hand drop to my arm. I didn't move, not that it would make a difference. He could chain me to the bed and to whatever he wanted to me, and I wouldn't be able to stop him. The thought rushed through me, and I felt myself think about it. The way he might touch me, the way he might bring me to the edge. He looked like the type to make you beg for it. "Is that what you want?" I asked. Those thoughts had me getting bolder now. He stepped back abruptly. "Not now. I have things to do, but you'll be here whenever I make up my mind about what I want to do to you." He smirked and was gone before I could say anything else. Do to me? I glanced around me for anything I might be able to use to get this chain off, but it was too strong, and what the hell would I do once it was off? It wasn't like there was an elevator that went back to my world from wherever the hell this place was. I'd be free, yes, but have no idea where to go next or how to get back home. That was a huge problem. "What the hell do I do?" I said, falling back onto the bed. The whole room was dark and dank. There was nothing to pass the time or tell me how long I was even here for. It could be days, hours. I'd never know. I studied the chain on my wrist for anything that might give. I don't know anything about magic, but I understood how things were made. Maybe there was a weak spot, or maybe I could just get it to let go. My stomach growled, and I groaned. There was no food in this place, and that demon left a while ago. He wasn't going to care that I had human needs like food and a bathroom. He'd probably tell me to starve. I shook my head and sighed in frustration. What a horrible way to die. That was the inevitable outcome here. I was going to die after he'd done whatever horrible thing he planned to do to me. He'd let me starve to death or some other kind of punishment for the deal my family sidestepped. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to let myself get sucked into the pain of what is going to come, I said to myself. I turned over and closed my eyes, ready to go back into the dream world. At least there, everything would be how I want it. Everyone would be alive, and there wouldn't be any thoughts of what was coming. There. At least I'd be safe. I smelled something good, like fresh bread in the morning, and turned over. Standing there was the demon with a spread of fresh bread, jam, and some sandwich meats. I glanced at him, and then at the plate. "I figured you'd be hungry," he said, and I sat up. "I am, but I didn't think you'd care," I said without thinking. He sat it on the edge of the bed and stepped back. "I might be a demon, but I'm not going to let you starve," he said. I took the meat and made a quick sandwich a bite. It was better than it smelled, and I groaned with happiness. "That good, huh?" he said with a chuckle. "Wait, you don't eat, do you?" He shrugged. "I mean, I could if I wanted to, but I don't need to." "You should try it," I said, pointing at the meat, and he made a face. "No, that's for you." I didn't know why I was being nice to this demon that planned on keeping me here. Just because he was in a good mood right now and being nice to me didn't mean it was going to last long. Maybe I should use it to my advantage. "I can't go anywhere, so maybe you could take this off," I said, raising my chained arm. "Nah, I like you chained to the bed," he said with a smirk. There he is. I made a face and took another bite of my food. At least he wasn't letting me die like this. At least he cared enough to give me one last meal. "You know I don't even know your name," I said, watching him. "I told you." "So, I should just call you a demon of dreams?" I shook my head. "That's a terrible name." The demon of dreams and destiny, he repeated for the 500th time. I'm not calling you that, I snapped. Besides, how can you be a demon of dreams and destiny? He leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. You don't understand how much power is in a person's dreams. You can learn everything about them just by what they dream about. That gives you power over their destiny? I took another bite of my sandwich. It tells me what buttons to push to get them where I want them, he answered. So you manipulate people, I said, shaking my head. You could say that, he answered, his eyes just watching me. What? You don't even realize what you are, he said. I stared at him. What the hell is he talking about? It's probably better for both of us that you don't, he said, turning from me and disappearing before I can question him any further. Typical.
Chapter 6. Serious, it took everything in me not to grab that woman and make her mine. She had no idea how powerful she was. She could do everything I could, and probably more. That wasn't just dangerous for me, it was for her as well. Her family had always had magic, but it normally showed itself in the waking world. The fact this one human woman, the one I now had held in my little section of the demon world, could control dreams, was a huge curveball even I didn't see coming. I eyed the demons sniffing around my barriers. They could feel there was a human here, and they were dying to get a piece. The only thing keeping Caitlin safe was me. If any of these demons got their hands on her, she'd be ripped apart just for fun. They wouldn't even care about her power, not unless they were looking to take me down. My mind slipped to that fucking warlock who took my book all those years ago. He was a problem, and the fact the witch I sent to get it couldn't even do that was a bigger one. But that was a problem for a later date. Those two I could keep an eye on through their dreams. I stepped to the edge of my barrier and eyed the closest demon. You know better than to hang out around here. The red-skinned demon blinked his reptile eyes at me and smiled. There's a human in there. We know you're hiding one. And, I said, looking as though they weren't bothering me as much as they were. We want a bite, the red demon said with a wide smile. That human is mine to play with. If you so much as look in her direction, you'll be missing your head before you can blink, I seethed. So angry with one little human. He cocked his head. There are so many out there. Why this one? That's my business, and you're encroaching on my lands, I said, stepping forward. The red demon stepped back. I didn't mean any harm, just when you're done with her. He didn't finish his sentence before I was in front of him, grabbing his throat. The other demon didn't bother to intervene. He knew better. You will not think about any human I might have in my home again. There is no after I'm done with her. She's mine and you won't be back. Understood? My gaze burned into him, and he nodded. I let go of him and the red demon scurried away. At least Caitlin was safe for now.
Chapter 7. K. I put the food on the little dresser across the room when I was done having my fill. He'd given me just enough chain to get that far, but as soon as I got back to the bed, it tightened up on me. Almost like it knew where in the place I was. Of course, that stupid chain was magic. What was I expecting? I finally felt like there was some kind of light, even if my captor wasn't being completely honest with me. I'd have to figure out how to get out of here and back home, but maybe I had a little time before I had to worry about that. I thought about what he said about having the power in the dream world to learn who people were. Is it possible? I thought back to the many times I'd had weird dreams about the people I care about and how I'd watched them go through so many horrible things. If I could do that with other people, maybe it was possible with him. I sat on the edge of the bed. A part of me knew I was going to invade his mind in a way that most people wouldn't even know. But him? He'd know, and I'd only have a few minutes to learn what I needed to use against him. If there was anything I could use, no more thinking. I had to do this and find out anything I could. It was the only way I'd be able to bribe my way out of this. Do I want out of this? I pushed the thought away and laid back, closing my eyes. I took a breath and dropped into sleep, instantly finding myself in my mother's kitchen, watching her sit at that table, just like I'd left her. She looked so peaceful here. This was right before they found it, right before everything changed forever. I settled there for a moment, thinking about what I was about to do. How would he react? "Mom, I need advice," I said, glancing at the woman sitting in the chair at the table. She smiled. "What's on your mind?" "I have to do something that might make someone mad, but it's the only way I can get back home," I said. You're conflicted, she said, shaking her head. You have to do what you think is right. Getting home is important, but are you okay with the cost? I dropped my gaze to the floor. As much as I hated being here, there was something about that demon, even if he still refused to tell me his name. Something that made me feel seen again after all these years. My mom was sick most of my life and was the only person that ever saw me for who I was. I missed her more than anything. I want to go home, I said. Then do what you have to and hope it works out, she said with a smile. I smiled back and let the scene fall away. Now it was time for the hard part. I landed in the middle of a wasteland. It was dark and smelled like ash and death. Where the hell am I? I stepped forward looking for anything that might tell me who this guy was, and was shy. Was so important to him until I saw it. Standing not far was my demon and a group of others circling him. He fought them until they beat him to the ground, kicking and punching him harder each time. You're a disgrace to demons, one spat. What kind of power is dream walking? Another said with a laugh. He pushed them back and got to his feet. One that tells you secrets. He laughed, like how you got to the position you're in or who's pulling your strings. The first demon stepped back. No one is pulling my strings, he said. Really, the Demon King doesn't pull you into the human world for his little games? My demon said with a laugh and adjusted his shirt. The ones where he hunts witches and gives them to other creatures as prizes. I don't do any of that, he snapped. I don't care how your king keeps the peace, but don't think you can call yourself better than me. He stepped closer. I can see everything when you close your eyes. I stepped back and ran right into my demon, and he gave me a look that told me I'd probably made the wrong choice. The scene around us shifted and we're standing in his little bedroom in the dream world. I glanced at the bed, expecting to see my body there, but nothing was. He shook his head and closed the gap between us. I stepped back, but he grabbed my arms and held me there. His eyes burrowed into mine. I can't keep you safe if you insist on doing stupid things, he seethed. Keep me safe? I shook my head. What the hell are you talking about? His grip tightened. There are things that you don't know about. Like this game, I said without thinking. You can't leave here. It's not safe. I heard you the first time, I snapped, but I was only in my dream. No, you were in that demon he's going to know, he said, pushing me back to the bed. There was something I hadn't seen from him before, and it scared me. He was afraid, but why? I don't understand, I said, letting myself sit on the bed. I started this looking for some kind of clarity, and this was not what I was expecting. That demon pulls witches for his master's games. I usually don't get in the middle of it, but I saw him pull your name. They were going to put you in the games. I shook my head. What games? Every year, the Demon King sets up a game with 5 witches and 5 hunters to keep the peace. The witches are curated by the Demon King, and the hunters have to catch the witch they want. Then they own her. He kept his eyes on me as he spoke. That's how you found me, I said. No one is laying claim to what is mine, he said with bite. I'm not yours, I said. Would you rather be in those games? Either way, you belong to someone. I dropped my gaze. I'd fucked up so bad. If that demon wanted to come get me, he'd know right where I was, and I'd be screwed. Caitlin. His hand brushed my cheek, and I was a bit thrown by his kindness. I can protect you, if you let me. There was something in his eyes that told me he would, and that anything I ever needed, he'd find a way to make happen. And I wanted that more than anything. I nodded, and before I could even react, his lips were on mine. Chapter 9. I opened my eyes, and I was lying on the bed fully clothed and alone. The dream was over, and I wasn't there anymore. A part of me wondered if it even happened. Everything was so weird. I rolled over and took in the room. It looked brighter from the last time I paid attention. My wrist was still chained to this fucking bed, but at least I wasn't worried about if I was going to be taken care of while I was here. I wonder if he'll let me go once the demons are gone? I sighed at the idea. Did I want him to? These games sounded like the last thing I wanted to experience, but maybe he was lying to me. Maybe that was his dream, and he wanted me to be scared and stuck here. Maybe I didn't care. I felt the air in the room get warmer, and then there he was, standing there with a plate of food again. This time it was more curated, like he dug into my mind and pulled out my favorites. "I can't believe you got some of Daisy's pizza," I said, grabbing a slice and practically shoveling it into my mouth. "That was where we went the first time you tried to dodge me, remember?" he said with a smirk. I did remember that, and the carnival he made me go on a ride with him in. Then he told me I didn't know anything and changed my world. I wondered what other things he learned about me just from the one night of dreaming. "And the carnival," I said. "Why did you just let all that happen?" "I let you have your fun for a bit," he said, pulling a slice of pizza from the box and taking a bite. "Your life was getting ready to change." "Because of you," I said, "because it's how it has to be. Unless you like running for your life only to get caught by a demon that will be significantly worse than me," he said. "How do you know they'd be worse?" "They always are. They're royalty in their worlds. That's the only way it works." He sighed when I just stared at them. "The demons or vampires or whatever comes to those games are looking for slaves. They don't care about the women they catch. They make them do things for them. Give them power. It seems like you don't like that, but you're okay with manipulating people to get what you want," I said, watching him. He looked away and shook his head. "That's different. I'm not making anyone my slave." I laughed. "Except me." "That's not the same." He almost growled. I raised an eyebrow, and he shook his head. "You said you'd let me protect you." I raised my hand so he could see the chain still on my wrist. "Is this protecting?" "Yes," he snapped and then smirked. "And maybe it's good for," his eyes drifted down my body, "other things." I shivered at the thought. Having his hands on me again, but really this time not just in a dream. The way he touched every inch of me with such care and made sure I was satisfied with every move. I dropped my gaze and grabbed another slice of pizza. "You're impossible." He laughed and snatched the pizza from my hand. "It was impossible to keep my cock out of you that long. Now you're chained to my bed and all I want to do is rip your clothes off and get between those thighs in the waking world." I stared at him, and he just kept that smirk on his face. I was in shock from the fact he stole my food for one, and the sentence that just came out of his mouth. But I also couldn't deny the heat between my legs. Maybe being here wasn't so bad. He smirked and took a bite of my pizza. "But we have all the time in the world." His face changed, and I knew something was up. "Stay here." "Like I have a choice," I said, shaking the chain. "Good. I have a demon to take care of," he said, and was gone before I could say anything. I wished it was the dream world. At least, there I could get free from this and help him or get out of here or something. Sitting here waiting was killing me. I looked at the chain again. It seemed different from before, or I was seeing it differently. I wasn't sure which. I touched it and it moved like it was melting, but there wasn't any heat coming from the cool metal. I pulled at it and it moved. I gave it a little more force and it slipped from my wrist. I was free from the chains now to find a way out of the room. The moment the thought left my mind, a door appeared on the far side of the wall. "Weird," I said to myself. Was his magic starting to lose its hold? If that was the case, then he was probably in trouble and out there alone because of me. All of this was because of me. I shook my head at the thought. This whole thing was because he wanted to protect me, and I still didn't understand why. Sarius shouldn't care what happens to me. He didn't know me. It was just some stupid thing my grandmother did years ago to protect my mother, and then she died anyway. None of it makes sense, even with all the pieces in front of me. I opened the door and there was Sarius at the edge of what I guessed was his land here, and a red demon talking. I couldn't hear what they said, but the way he was standing told me everything. He was acting as intimidating as he could. I took a deep breath and stepped through the door. The way those demons looked at me like I was their next meal made me think maybe I should have just let Sarius handle it. Sarius walked to me and grabbed my arm, pulling me back from the other demons. "What the hell, Caitlin?" he bit out. "I'm not letting you fight my battles for me," I said, and pulled my arm out of his grip. "You don't have any powers outside of the dream world," he whispered. "They don't know that," I said, and walked past him, stopping in front of the demons. You should go. I'm not going to these games, and I won't let you take me, I said as strongly as I could muster. Oh, really? Is that a fact? The red one glanced at the other, more human-looking demon, and back to me. The Demon King makes the rules. We just enforce them. Tell your Demon King I'm already claimed. I crossed my arms. They laughed. By him? The red one pointed at Sirius. I nodded. He stepped closer, and it took everything in me not to step back, but he turned his gaze to Sirius. The Demon King will not be pleased. You'll pay. Sirius grabbed my arm. Like I told you, this, he looked my way before looking back to them, which was mine a long time before your king laid eyes on her or her magic. They opened their mouths to respond, and he cut them off. She's mine by oath from her bloodline. That breaks any claim anyone can make on her. The red demon snarled and shook his head. And if we take her anyway? You won't, he said. You can't stop both of us. We aren't in the dream world. Eventually, you will be, and it's not me that will hunt you, he said, looking my way. And she's far better at it than me. Both demons look at me and then at each other. He told them exactly what I could do. I had no cards to play. You're making a mistake, Sirius. The Demon King isn't someone you should be making an enemy of, the red demon said before backing up and walking away. I let out a breath and glanced at Sirius, who looked super pissed. He yanked my arm, and we were back in the little room. What the hell were you thinking? He seethed as he shook me like I was some child who ran from their parents. I didn't want you out there on your own. I didn't want you to die, I yelled. He stopped and crinkled his forehead. He didn't say anything before his lips were against mine. This kiss was rougher than the one in the dream world, possessive with a touch of anger. He was gentle before, but something told me this time I wouldn't be so lucky. I felt cold metal around both wrists before they yanked me down on the bed. It pulled taut, but not in a way that was painful. He stood over me with hunger in his eyes. I told you I wanted nothing more than to get between those thighs again, he said with a wicked smile. I started to say something, but he shook his head. No, you're not talking unless I tell you to. No, I liked this dream, and it was all mine. The end.